Hello, soccer fans, and welcome to another episode of the Sons of a Pitch, an American soccer podcast. Tonight, February 10th, we are continuing our 2020 preseason team previews, looking at Atlanta United and the Seattle Sounders. We're going to let you know all the players in and out, projected starting 11s, as well as what the ceiling and the floor are for each team. So stay tuned to hear how these two powerhouses in the MLS could fare in 2020. We round out the episode with some news from around the league, as well as touching on the latest provisions in the new collective bargaining agreement. So stay tuned for all this and more on the Sons of a Pitch, an American soccer podcast. Well, hello once again, soccer fans. We are happy to be back with you, talking MLS and all things American soccer. I'm one of your hosts, Nick Pateris, joined via the technological advancement that is Skype, is my good friend and fellow host, Mike Guglielmi. Mike, how you feeling tonight?
Feeling good, ready to talk about some awesome teams in Atlanta and Seattle.
And we are inching ever closer to the opening of the 2020, the 25th MLS season. We've got CONCACAF Champions League kicking off at the end of February. We have MLS starting up that first week of March, end of February as well. Like it's a crazy time for these teams as they finalize their rosters, as they start training camps. There's a lot going on in the world of MLS, and we want to make sure that you hear our opinions about it. No, we want to have a conversation with everyone out there. So please join us along on Twitter at SOP Soccer, on Facebook at Sons of a Pitch Soccer, and you can even find us on YouTube searching for Sons of a Pitch Soccer. Mike, you have been putting out all of our team preview videos and getting pretty good with some of these graphics here, man. From an accountant to a self-taught video producer, not a bad hobby.
It's been a lot of research because I'm like, man, I just want to get better and better and better, and obviously we're not even close yet, but it's been fun. So I just want to give a shout out to 3 of our latest YouTube subscribers, Larry 2, Nikki Prater, and Blob. And there's many others out there who have their privacy settings so that I can't see who subscribed. So all I see is the number go up. So to all you people who know what you're doing with the privacy settings, thanks for subscribing.
And also we want to thank all of our latest Twitter followers. Ian Hart, Larry too, thanks for following us on Twitter as well. GCG0816, a husband, father, and an old guy who loves the Cubs. Well said, sir. The London Soccer Blog, the Happiness and Darkness Superhero Movie Podcast, Michael Hughes, the Taken Quickly Podcast, Flip the Rules, Playing with Fire, the PWF Soccer Pod. And Mike, you got to talk to some of those guys over there, didn't you?
I did. So they're just starting up. They have not put anything out as of yet, but they've got their social media up and running, and hopefully going to start recording very shortly. So check that out for some good Chicago Fire FC content. It's at PWF Soccer Pod on Twitter as well as on Instagram.
Also, thanks to Andrew Lewis Foster, Parker Smith, Julio at Joey Blue Sky, Sports as a Job. If that interests anyone, check out at Sports as a Job on Twitter. Thank you to everyone there, and as well, thank you to everyone who follows along, shares our content, who helps promote the conversation of American soccer. That's our main goal here at the Sons of a Pitch. And speaking of, let's get right into it, Mike, unless you got anything else you want to remind the listeners of, which you might.
Yeah, the only thing I've got left is the 1,000 YouTube subscriber challenge. We need you guys to get on YouTube, find us on YouTube, subscribe, and then follow us on Twitter. Once we hit 1,000 subscribers before February 29th, the opening day of MLS Soccer, if we hit that number, I will put out a random drawing for one of our Twitter followers, and we will message you, and you will win a $100 Visa gift card. So get on that. So listeners, if you have not subscribed or added us on Twitter, make sure to do that immediately so that we can get to that 1,000 and I can give away some money.
Sounds good, Mike. Sounds good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to dive now into our team previews, starting with Atlanta United, one of the best expansion franchises in club history. They've already got an MLS Cup. They have all sorts of records. They've got all sorts of star players, star coaches. How are they going to transition and keep that going in 2020? So all the people out there know, as we preview these teams, we are looking at the 2020 MLS transfer tracker, looking at some of the players in and out from Atlanta United this season. Some of the players in: homegrown defender George Campbell, Brooks Lennon, you may remember him from Real Salt Lake, and Anton Walks, a transfer from Portsmouth, and Fernando Mesa, someone from Club Tijuana, a center back from Liga MX, which just continues that trend of teams and players from Liga MX doing business and coming north of the border here to the MLS. They got Edgar Castillo on a free transfer, Adam John, a transfer from Phoenix Rising. Mike, you had a little funny thing you wanted to mention about Mr. John.
Yeah, so Adam John was the player for the Columbus Crew back in their Atlanta's expansion season in the playoffs, when they had a 0-0 draw with Columbus, and it went to penalty kicks, and Zach Steffen stood on his head. Adam John was the player for Columbus that scored the game-ending goal, and he shushed the entire crowd over in the supporter section, and that guy is now playing for Atlanta United. Like, how things come full circle is beyond me.
I wonder what kind of reception he's going to get from the fans there. Maybe a few boos on his first trot out on the field, but after that, I'm sure the Five Stripes fans will welcome him as one of their own.
Hey,
But we'll see.
You never know.
We'll see. Also on the way in, midfielder Jake Mulroney, a transfer from, let me make sure I'm getting this right, Heart of Midlothian from the Scottish Premier League. So bringing in a Scottish international, hopefully you can follow in the footsteps of Johnny Russell and be as successful for Atlanta as Russell has been for Kansas City. And then another player in, Matheus Rossetto, a transfer in from Atletico Paranaense. And now, Mike, the last bit of rumor here as far as their transfers in go is a 24-year-old Manuel Castro, a right winger, could come in on a free transfer. So what do you kind of make of that rumor? What do you think if it's going to happen? Fill us in a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I saw it reported today, and we've had a history of these things happening to us when we record these previews. We'll record, and then by the time we release the episode 24 hours later or so, these signings have happened. It happened most recently last week with Derek Etienne. We were talking about it for Columbus or talking about him for New York Red Bulls. So check out that one if you haven't listened to it or viewed it yet. And what do you know? He signs with Columbus right after Nick was talking about how he should be signed somewhere in this league. And 24 hours later was done. So there's a rumor that this Manuel Castro, a right winger, is from Argentina, is apparently rumored to be picked up as kind of a Tito Villalba replacement. Looks like it's going to be a 6-month loan for free. So it's going to be a free loan for 6 months and then a $3 million buy option. So it could get done. And if it is, then, $3 million price probably puts him in that TAM to designated player range. So it's not done yet as we record here Monday the 10th, but it could be done by the time we release this episode on the 11th. So I did want to put it in there because MLS Buzz has reported it. Reddit on for Atlanta was going nuts regarding it. So I think it's probably going to happen.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like that'd be a great signing for Atlanta, really getting creative with some of their contract terms there, especially with the new CBA, which we'll touch on hopefully at the end of the episode. They'll be able to either work him in as a DP or bring him in as that kind of third DP where he's making TAM type of money and give him a little more salary cap flexibility. Do you know Tito Villalba was occupying a DP slot, right, for them?
He was when he came over, when he originally signed, but he was not a DP last season. He had kind of his contract had got structured down to be TAM.
So that's the players in on the for Atlanta United. Players out. Couple of big names, couple of household MLS names here. Darlington Nagbe gets traded to Columbus, which we kind of saw coming based on everything Nagbe was wanting. He went from Portland to Atlanta to Columbus back home. Kind of saw the writing on the wall a season ago. Good for Atlanta for what they got for him, and hopefully he fits in well with Columbus. Another kind of name that everyone knows here is Justin Miram. His option got declined. Breck Shea, a guy who never really filled out his potential, he's out of contract and did not get re-signed. Also of note, Leandro Gonzalez Perez, LGP, transferred to Club Tijuana. So a guy who is integral on the back line for Atlanta United after their couple seasons in MLS, their cup-winning season. A guy who, in my opinion, needs to take a hit, and then he is one of the most entertaining players to watch in MLS. Like, if he does not get a foul called in his favor, then it's just game on for LGP. Like, he's going to be making that up against the opposing team. So sorry to see him leave the league, but happy that he's probably going to get a lot more time and a lot more money down in Liga MX. Also of note, Julian Gressel, big up-and-comer for Atlanta, traded to DC United. So we expect big things out of him in DC, and we'll see how they fill his shoes here in Atlanta. Other names on the way out, Brandon Vasquez, Chris Goslin, Jose Hernandez, Patrick Okonkwo, who ended up signing with Montreal, if I'm correct on that,
That's
right,
a different
Mike?
Okonkwo.
A different Okonkwo. There's a whole family of them. Imagine that. Also, options declined on Florentine Pogba, Mikey Ambrose, Kevin Kratz. John Gallagher was loaned out to Aberdeen and had his contract extended. Dion Pereira and the club part ways. Lagos Kunga off to Phoenix Rising, and Andrew Carlton loaned out to the Indy 11. So lots of roster moves for a team that has been at the top of the Eastern Conference since joining the league. Mike, is this signifying kind of a new era for Atlanta United? Is this a rebuild, a reload? What do you make of all this movement?
Yeah, I'd put it more as a reload, just because their main star players aren't switching. They did lose some guys like LGP who are very integral to that team, as well. You look at some of the other names you mentioned like Julian Gressel, but I think I would put it more towards reload. They're bringing in some more young South American talent like they have done many times in the past and been extremely successful with. So they still have a great base. They're still a strong team. A lot of movement, which is a bit surprising when you have a successful season like Atlanta did last season, where they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, won multiple trophies, U.S. Open Cup, Campeones Cup. Didn't win the East. They fell a little bit short to New York City in that one, but for the regular season and the playoffs as well to Toronto FC. But overall, a lot of movement, which is surprising, but I think they're good moves and a lot of depth pieces as well, outside of those two or three guys that are out of the starting 11.
So with that, let's look at some of those core players that have stuck around. Let's start with the three DPs here. Joseph Martinez, Pity Martinez, and who's the third one? Ezekiel Barco. There it is. Yep. Buried in my notes here. Martinez, Barco, and Joseph. Yes. So, Mike, what's your take on the three DPs, and what do you expect from them this upcoming season?
Well, Joseph Martinez, that's enough said. The man score goals. That's what he does. He just bags them left and right, and he will continue to do so. I have no doubt about that. Ezekiel Barco, this is kind of a question mark, right, for him. It's his third year with Atlanta. He's still only 20 years old, which is ridiculous. This is one of the biggest up-and-comers in the world of football, not just in the United States, in Argentina, where he's from. This guy is kind of one of the big young stars of the game. There's been lots of rumors as far as teams over in Europe, big teams that are interested in him, Inter Milan and some English teams. So it's interesting. He didn't have great numbers in his first season, and you can kind of give that off to the transition from Argentina to the United States, and plus being that he's so young, right? Then the second season was injury plagued, and he missed a lot of time with the U20 World Cup for Argentina. So this is the year where, to me, it's a make or break year for him. I think he needs to have a good season, improve on the numbers that he's already had here in MLS, do a little bit better, at least from a numbers perspective, and try not to get hurt. And I think that will work out well for him if he does so, and as well for the franchise of Atlanta to get them to be able to sell him or keep him as a superstar that he's budding into. The third one, Pity Martinez, kind of same story, right? This is his second season instead of his third, like Barco. 5 goals and 9 assists last season in 32 appearances. So not a really successful season, but given that it was his first season coming over from Argentina, and this guy was the CONMEBOL Player of the Year, so it's not, that's no slough award to get. So he came over here. He did the adjustment to the United States. He had some issues with Frank de Boer. They seemed to iron those out. Again, this is his year to kind of say it's either going to be the move as a whole is going to be a bust, or it's going to be good for him and Atlanta. So those are kind of my thoughts on the DPs. What thoughts do you have on them, Nick?
You read about Martinez. He's going to be the primary goal scorer. He's going to take all the attention from the defense. I have yet to see an MLS club figure out a way to defend Joseph Martinez other than just throwing numbers at him. The problem is Joseph is just good enough where he can distribute the ball when he needs to. But then you've got to have guys like Barco and Martinez and some of the other players on Atlanta's roster step up and alleviate some of the pressure on Joseph so that he doesn't just get locked down in the total focus. But he's going to be the primary goal scorer. He has been since Atlanta United came into this league, and he will continue to do that. You're right. Barco and Martinez definitely need to step up. There's no more excuses for them. I guess maybe you give Barco, another year if you want to, another year or two just because of his age. But he does need to stay healthy. He does need to at least put up maybe 15 goals and assists combined this year just to show that he can contribute and play at the MLS level, because we know Atlanta's business model. We know that they want to get these young, talented players, mostly from South America we've seen, and then really build them up, have them get success in the MLS, and then flip them and sell them overseas for, double, triple of what Atlanta United paid for, and then just continue to raise the prominence of Atlanta. And then from a league perspective, raise the prominence of the league. You got Miguel Almiron, who's playing well for Newcastle. I'm not saying he's lighting up the Premier League by any means, but he's playing well for Newcastle. That was a good investment for them. Maybe their coach isn't using him in the best way, but I think Miguel Almiron, again, that's the example that we've been given. But you look at Alphonso Davies, a guy who's playing for Bayern Munich, starting over there. There's probably others that I'm forgetting who have gone overseas lately. But that's the Atlanta business model. That's the point that we're trying to make here. That's the point Atlanta United's trying to make here. For that to happen, Barco has to have a good season. And you're right, it's time for Pity Martinez to step up, and 10 goals, 15 goals, something like that, where he can complement Joseph and then just be a creative attacking force. You're right, maybe there was a little something there with Frank de Boer, and I feel like that happened with the whole team. You saw that early on in Atlanta's season last year, where they got off to a terrible start. Like, the train had barely left the station, and there were just rumors abound about, de Boer's already lost the locker room. You're right, they ironed that out. They took care of that. They put a spike in it, so to say, for Atlanta United fans.
Nice.
But now it's time to start fresh, start with all of that behind them. They don't have to go through any of that transition anymore, and neither does Pity Martinez. So I expect a lot of them. I expect Atlanta to come out hot and really, really light the league up those first 2-3 weeks, those first 4 or 5 games. And speaking of the 3 DPs, one of them has to be their most important player. I mean, we've got Joseph Martinez in our notes as our most important player for obvious reasons, but it wouldn't surprise me if Barco ends up becoming their most important player, or Pity Martinez becomes their most important player, just because they have so much potential and so much to do in the midfield and in the attack for Atlanta United. But you wanted to talk about Joseph Martinez here, Mike, so I'm going to let you have your minute to praise the greatest goal scorer the MLS has ever seen, arguably.
Very arguably. This guy, as he goes, so does the team. So I think there's no question here that he is the most important player for Atlanta United. When he's healthy, and if he scores 20 goals, which he seems to do with relative ease, I can't even remember what the number was last season. It was something like what, 11, 12, 13 matches in a row that he had scored a goal in. Just ridiculous type numbers. If he doesn't put up those type of numbers, yeah, even if Pitty's putting up numbers and Barco's doing well, if Joseph Martinez isn't scoring over 20 goals next season, well, this season coming up, it's gonna be trouble for them. As he goes, so does the team. You saw a regression in Atlanta towards the end of the season when he had missed those few games with injury. They didn't lose them all. They still won games, but you saw a regression in their play. So I think that you're definitely their most important player is Joseph Martinez. And again, as you mentioned, the DPs, you definitely need good performances out of those guys as well. But I think Joseph is what it really boils down to for Atlanta.
Yeah, and league-wide, if a team is going to be successful, you need your DPs to be successful. You got to have your best players playing their best soccer. It's something that I've said a bunch of times. It's something that we've mentioned a lot on this show. I mean, that's the way the league is built right now. They're expanding a lot of this in the new collective bargaining about bringing up minimum player salaries, kind of expanding some DP level type rules. But at the end of the day, you want your best players playing your best soccer, and that's Joseph, Petey, and Barco for Atlanta United. Now, we've talked about the established players. We want to feature a possible breakout youngster for every team. So for Atlanta United, we've put down George Bello as the breakout youngster, the 18-year-old defender who has made a few appearances since 2018, was hurt last year, got some youth call-ups, as well as for the U17 World Cup. But Mike, there's a lot more to George Bello if he's going to be a breakout player, and that probably rests on his injury history. So, what did you read about that?
Yeah, so George Bello, 18 years old. The guy fits breakout youngster as a defender. There was some talk of him getting, he got a little bit of time last year as well, a couple of appearances. However, really, as a whole for Atlanta, this team has so much young talent, but none of them can really be considered breakout youngsters, right? I mean, you've got guys like Barco. He's not breaking out. Everybody knows who he is. There's a lot of young talent on this team, and really, that's a good position to be in. That you don't really have a bunch of guys that could be those breakout defenders. It was funny, the conversations on Reddit that we had with Atlanta fans was just, I mean, these guys are all like, well, I guess Bello. I mean, we really don't have any like. There's nothing, there's really nothing to say here. We don't need anybody to break out. We've got guys at every position. We're good to go. And we have guys who are young at every position who have already broken out. So, a little bit of talk about Mulroney, one of the new signings they brought over from Hearts. So that's a possibility as well. But really, Bello, just a note on him, though, he did have a bit of an injury during the preseason game against Birmingham Legion of the USL. He did, seems to be like some type of concussion. There's no official team statement out yet on what exactly happened. But he was apparently just cleared to fly back to Atlanta today. A couple days after the game. So hopefully he's all right. Hopefully, it's just a couple weeks out with some, maybe a minor concussion or something. There is some ramblings that it is good news. But again, take that with a grain of salt because you don't know exactly how that information got, sent over. But that's pretty much the only option. I mean, that I've got for breakout youngster. You got any thoughts, Nick?
I think that's where you got to go. Like you said, the Atlanta United fans that we've talked to, and their roster, the way their roster is, like you said, this is a reload, not a rebuild. The talent that they need to have good seasons is already on the roster. It's already been guys who've been playing. So they just need their starting 11 to play as the best starting 11 they can. And speaking of that starting 11, because I'm so good at transitions and segues, we put together our own projected starting 11 here. Mike, you've been poring over roster formations from Atlanta United. They used 3 different formations in last season's playoffs. What lineup did you pick, and what players did you put in there?
I'm going with the same formation that, like kind of the same way that we've done it with all the other teams that we've done. Just keeping it with that last game, a 4-3-2-1. Guzan in goal. There's no question there. Just got the extension. You got I think Mulroney, the new signing from Hearts, will break in the left back. Miles Robinson and Meza, the new center back from Tijuana, as well as Franco Escobar on the right. Then in the three in the mid, you got Barco, Lorenowitz, and Remedy. And then Pity Martinez, Emerson Hidman, and then up front, of course, who else but Joseph Martinez. That's pretty much the best guess that I have without, the rumors here of the new signing that's coming in. And then I would assume he would jump into the starting 11, the Manuel Castro, if he does, if that move does come through to fruition. But yeah, that's kind of the starting 11 that I've got there for Atlanta, just to kind of get things rolling this season. But it is kind of up in the air as far as what formation DeBoer is going to play, because he does like to tinker with his formations a lot.
Absolutely. And we know Atlanta is in the CONCACAF Champions League. We know that they're going to be playing for multiple trophies domestically, whether it's the MLS Cup, the Supporter Shield, or the U.S. Open Cup. So he's going to need to cycle through a lot of players to keep fresh legs and deal with whatever injuries or knocks come their way. You did mention Brad Guzan got the extension. Just looking at the article on MLSsoccer.com, it just says that Atlanta United and Guzan have agreed to a multi-year contract extension. So I guess technically a multi-year extension could be as little as 2 years, but I'm thinking more likely, 3 or 4, and maybe see him transition into a backup role when he can train some new young goalkeepers that come through, or at least be a part of the organization, kind of like a pseudo ambassador going forward. So with that, now we wrap up our Atlanta United preview with their ceiling and their floor. And it's pretty obvious with the talent on their roster that the ceiling for this team is they win the Eastern Conference. They maybe become the first MLS team to win CONCACAF Champions League, multiple trophies. I don't know if they're going to have a record-breaking season, something that could top LAFC or Toronto FC of recent vintage, but definitely multiple trophies are within the reach of this Atlanta United team. As far as a floor, again, they're still too talented. I still think the East is not as good as its top teams or as the Western Conference. So given all of that, I think Atlanta United, if the bottom falls out, if they get off to a rough start again, if, we were talking about Barco getting hurt, something like that, maybe they fall to the 5th or 6th spot in the Eastern Conference and then have to go play an away game, which might not work out so well for them. We know how much they love playing at the Benz, those home games, those home crowds. So I think it would be pretty terrible for Atlanta United if they fell further than the 4th spot and had to go on the road for the playoffs. But that being said, Mike, they got their first game against Motagua in the CONCACAF Champions League on the 18th, and then the following, I think the 29th or so, they start their MLS campaign. What do you expect from Atlanta United, and what should the fans be happy with? Like, do we need to temper expectations of these Atlanta United fans after these first couple of years already?
I don't think so, because I think they have enough talent to stay on that level and continue to do extremely well. So I think they're fine. I agree with your predictions as far as ceiling and floor goes. The first game against Motagua and CCL, I think a side like that, it's a good matchup to have as your first. So you've got kind of that extra preseason game, because let's be serious, Motagua can't hang with Atlanta United. So barring some crazy disaster, which is possible because it's CCL and anything can happen in the CCL, as we've seen, it should be a fairly easy run through of 2 legs. The first game down there in Honduras, and then the second game at Kennesaw, at that tiny stadium there. So overall, I'm excited for Atlanta this season. I think it's going to be another good year. So don't temper your expectations, fans. You get to be spoiled with another successful year in the making, I'm sure. So those are my thoughts on Atlanta. And that's about it.
Our next team preview, this time we are bouncing out to the Western Conference, the Pacific Northwest to be precise. A beautiful city that I actually spent a few days in not too long ago, and we are dying to get back to take in a Seattle Sounders game. Wonderful city, wonderful fan base, so much going for this club. You know their history. The Pacific Northwest has been a hotbed of American soccer for decades, and the Seattle Sounders just embody that. They've never missed the playoffs. What, 11 seasons now? I think.
11 years.
Yeah, 2 MLS Cup titles, and Mike, I know just one of your favorite teams to talk about. Right?
Yeah.
As a Toronto FC fan, you know Seattle better than anybody, don't you?
I sure do, and I've watched them celebrate too many MLS Cups, but I'm sure the Seattle fans out there disagree with me.
I'm sure they do. We've got a couple listeners out in Seattle as well. So shout out to everyone in Seattle. Let us know your thoughts. Again, you can find us on Twitter at SOP Soccer, on Facebook at Sons of a Pitch Soccer, or on YouTube, Sons of a Pitch Soccer. Search for us there. And you can even email us, podcast at sonsofapitchsoccer.com. So we want to hear from you, Seattle fans, what you think is going to go on this year. We're going to break it down here again, starting off with some players in. Who is moving into Seattle this season? We've got goalkeeper Stephen Cleveland, who came in from Chicago. And being from the Chicago area, we know this is just a depth move. I don't think this guy is going to be a starting goalkeeper for Seattle anytime soon or anytime later, to be perfectly honest. This is not their goalkeeper of the future. They've brought in defender Shane O'Neill on a free transfer. They brought in midfielder João Paulo from Botafogo. Now, Mike, you got to read up a little bit on João Paulo. What did you find out about him?
Yeah, so Botafogo, his club there in Brazil, apparently they just missed the relegation. So like they just were, I think it was like the fourth from the bottom. So they didn't actually go down to Serie B. But that left them strapped for cash. So they were trying to make some moves and get some money, and that turned out to be João Paulo is their most sellable asset. So they sold him to Seattle, and he's more of a central defensive midfielder that he'll play up the field more than your traditional CDMs. So kind of an interesting note there for him. He'll probably be back there with Svensson and move Roldan up to the wing, and kind of experiment with that a little bit and see how that goes. And who knows, maybe they'll switch back at some point. But as of right this second, it looks like he'll be moving up to or having Roldan move up to the wing so that João Paulo can play that more central defensive midfielder role with Svensson.
And for those of you who don't know, Botafogo is a Brazilian club team, so club that's probably had a pretty big history, but like Mike said, recently just missed out on relegation, so looking to rebuild down there. The Seattle Sounders also bring in defender Yaimer Gomez Andrade as a transfer from Union de Santa Fe. He is a Colombian center back, and Union de Santa Fe is a top flight club down in the Argentinian league. He has a $3.85 million value on the website transfer market, which has been pretty good, at least relative amongst players. So someone who is going to step into a very big role in the MLS, that $3 to $4 million transfer fee. So he looks to be a very strong signing, someone that they need to fill in for the various defensive holes that Seattle has found themselves in this offseason. Kim Ki-hee is gone. Roman Torres is gone. Chad Marshall retired. So they're down a number of key defenders, and hopefully Andrade can step in and take that mantle of being one of these great Seattle Sounders defenders. So, Mike, if there's anything else you know about Andrade, let us know. And then why don't you tell us about some of the players that Seattle will be missing?
Yeah, so I'm really impressed with that signing. I think it'll turn out to be a really good signing, Yaimer Gomez Andrade. I think just the fact that a defender that has the size and skill level that he seems to have, at least from the videos that I've seen of him, to play in that league like Argentina, there's so many really good strikers and midfielders that so that experience is going to be great, especially coming into MLS. So I really like that signing. Some of the players out, you got Brian Meredith was selected in the expansion draft, Jonathan Campbell, Saad Abdul Salam, Roman Torres, Victor Rodriguez, Alex Roldan, Luis Silva, all had their options declined. Kim Key was out of contract, as well as Brad Smith, and Emmanuel Chechny was loaned to Union de Santa Fe. So really the big ones off of this list is, as you mentioned, the center backs for sure, as well. Brad Smith, that one's an interesting move as well. He's been kind of their main guy back in that position for the last few seasons. So interesting moves along the back line, kind of rebuilding that back line.
Yeah, it
But
almost makes you wonder if they're going to go a little more offensive minded. You know, how they say the best defense is a good offense. So to try
right.
and keep up with some of the new, if people are calling it MLS 4.0, or the very latest, trend in attacking soccer that is being played in the MLS. So maybe that's the João Paulo signing and kind of moving around some salary out of the back line there. Of note, though, Roman Torres did get picked up by Inter Miami, so you still get to see him play. You'll still get to see the haircut. You'll still get to see the crushing tackles, but he'll just be doing it in South Beach. Well, actually, Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
Memory serves me right. Yeah. So those are the players out for Seattle. And as we continue our review, there are 3 DPs, people that you have come to love and know, especially you, Mike. Nico Ladero, Raul Ruidiaz, and then the new signing, João Paulo. So what do we know about Ladero and Ruidiaz? And Mike, what have you gotten to have your heart broken by these guys play?
Yeah, they're really good. Nico Ladero is probably one of the best number 10s in the league, if not the best. Raul Ruidiaz, the guy's a killer, man. I mean, he poaches goals left and right. The guy, he doesn't make it look pretty. It's not like Brazilian tiki-taka, wonderful stuff. The guy scores goals. He gets in the right positions. He knows where the ball's going to be, and he smashes them home, and he scores. So we really know what we're getting from those two guys. And really the only question mark along the DPs is João Paulo, and that's because we haven't seen him play in MLS yet. So overall, I think they're set with those DPs. Nico Ladero is one of the best players in the league. He's in that MVP conversation every single year, and I think he's going to continue to get better. I mean, he kind of has that like midfield maestro where he's the more experience he has in this league, the better he's going to get. So those are my thoughts on the DPs.
It's funny, listeners and YouTube viewers. Like, I'm looking at the notes that Mike put together, and when he just put for Ladero and Ruidiaz was just, yeah, they're really good. Like, that was his notes as we were preparing for this episode. But they're not bad notes, Mike. You're spot on. Interesting about Ladero, like, he's 30 years old and he's still getting called up to the Uruguayan national team. You would think that down in Uruguay, they've got a bunch of young players chomping at the bit, guys that they want to bring up and expose to the international game. But Ladero keeps getting these call-ups, so you know the quality of player that he is. And as far as Ruidiaz, I disagree that he's a poacher. He does poach his goals, but he can also strike from 20 yards out. He can do it all. He can score in any number of manner in any position around the field. So yeah, he does his fair share of poaching, but I wouldn't qualify him as a poacher. I think they were calling him the assassin last season or something like that, and that's an appropriate name because he can strike from anywhere within that offensive third. You're right about João Paulo. We don't know much about him. He's put up some solid numbers in the Brazilian top flight, but it's a big adjustment going to the MLS. We know the travel schedule is different. We know just the style of play is a little different. The rosters are made up differently because of the salary cap restrictions. He's not playing with the same caliber of players around him as he's used to in these South American top flight teams. But he's going to get exposed to some top flight competition, at least in the Champions League coming up for Seattle. So we'll see how he does. Hopefully the new CBA with the chartered flights make it a little bit of a smoother transition for João Paulo to come up to the U.S. Now, Mike, you put Ruidiaz as your most important player for Seattle. Explain that. What made you pick him? I think he is going to be their most important player, but let's hear why.
Yeah, so I've got him as the most important player just because of the amount of goals that this guy has scored in the past few seasons and what he's going to do this year. Nico Ladero kind of is the glue and disperses the ball well to him, and is definitely very very important. Don't get me wrong, but Rui Diaz, if he's not scoring goals, they're a little bit weak as far as striker depth goes. Yeah, they've got Morris, but he's not really a striker. He's going to be more of a winger, midfield slash winger. They don't have a ton of depth. There are some young up and coming kids that like Justin Dillon. He might get a shot. They've got a couple other young guys we'll get to in a minute, but he's really important because if he's not there and he's not putting up the numbers, that could spell trouble for Seattle. They'll find a way to score goals if he doesn't do it, but they definitely, it will hurt them a lot. So that's kind of why I've got him as the most important player.
Absolutely. In the Western Conference, when you've got teams like LAFC, LA Galaxy, Dallas, teams who can just put up numbers of goals against you, who don't need to play defense because they'll just outscore you, 5-3 or something like that. Goal scoring is going to be key for the Seattle team. Like we said, and we hinted earlier, that it looks like they're transitioning to more of an offensive-minded approach, though we do know gosh, I'm blinking on his last name, Smetzer, their
Brian
coach.
Schmetzer, yeah.
Brian Schmetzer, thank you. He kind of gives a lot of freedom to his players. He kind of gives them some parameters of tactics and system, and then the players are free to play within that. And then he makes adjustments throughout the game. So maybe they are going more attack minded, and if they are, that means Rui Diaz is just going to be all that more important to the Seattle Sounders.
For sure. Speaking of the breakout youngsters for Seattle, there's a few options there. They've got a lot of young talent. First off is Handwalla Buana. That name alone is just an awesome name. But not just based off the name. 22-year-old homegrown. He's getting more and more time in the lineup each season that he's been. So for the past 2 seasons, he've had about 6 starts each and a few more appearances. Last season, the season before, really is a great story. He's from Kenya. It was a Kenyan refugee that came over here and started playing soccer over here and really lit things up. So I expect, I know he scored a big game-winning goal against Toronto. Believe it was 2 seasons ago, and he's got some talent. So I think this is the year that he really does break out, because at 22, that's kind of your last shot. So it would be interesting to see what he does as well. We've got Danny Leva, 16-year-old who got a little bit of a taste of first-team action last season. 2 previous years with Sounders 2 and Tacoma Defiance, which are the same team technically, S2 morphed into Tacoma Defiance. He's got time with U15 and U16 youth national team for the United States. So this is another kid that was really spoken highly of on Reddit when we were talking about who's going to be the next breakout youngsters for the Sounders this season. And then there were a couple honorable mentions. So Nick, why don't you tell us about those guys?
Sure. You already mentioned Justin Dillon, a guy who could be similar to a Will Bruin type, get a few minutes behind Rui Diaz, maybe fill in as a depth player, because Seattle is going to be playing a lot of soccer games this season with Champions League, MLS Cup aspirations, U.S. Open Cup aspirations, and all of that. Shandon Hopaiao, and I'm pretty sure you gave me this section just so you could hear me try to pronounce his last name.
How'd you know?
Just a hunch, Mike. Just a hunch. We've been doing this for a little while. So he is someone that the fans are really high on. Played with the Tacoma Defiance. And first of all, let me just say, the Tacoma Defiance probably has one of the coolest logos in American soccer right now. It's a ship sailing into the harbor, and there's like this kraken beast-like tentacles coming up out of the water to engulf it. So it is a very cool logo, and might be on my Christmas wish list next year. So we'll see if I end up with a Tacoma jersey. Again, the fans are really high on him. He's a forward. He's got goal scoring ability, and obviously, if he's been in the Seattle system, then he knows kind of how to. He knows what Brian Schmetzer's looking for, and as long as he keeps doing what he's doing in the system, he's going to continue to get more time with the Seattle first team, get more looks, things of that nature. So that is my take on their breakout potential youngsters here. As far as a starting 11, we know Schmetzer likes the 4-2-3-1, as a lot of teams around the world of soccer do. As far as the back line, we haven't spent really a lot of time talking about the defenders. Obviously, we all know goalie Stefan Fry. They did bring back a local name, I shouldn't say local name, former Seattle guy, Nuhu, who
They
he'll
didn't
probably
bring him
be
back. He never
starting.
left.
Oh, he
He
never
never
left? I
left.
thought he took like a year off or something like that.
No. He
Was
was
loaned out.
on the bench a little bit and behind Brad Smith.
Well, there you go. Well, now he is back. He left the starting lineup. Now he is back in our starting lineup. I'll say it that way. Thanks for correcting me, Mike. Nuhu, Gomez Andrade, and Arriaga in the center, and Leerdam out on the left. That's kind of the back line. As far as the defensive midfielders,
Leerdam on the right. I've got it. Leerdam's on the right and Nuhu on the left. So
See,
left to
I'm
right
looking at it from
on our notes.
sorry, I'm looking at it from the a defensive perspective, not the attacking perspective. Excuse me. And then as far as the CDMs here, the central defensive midfielders, Paulo and Svensson. Mike, tell us about the attack of Seattle and who you're projecting to start.
Yeah, so I've got Jordan Morris, Nico Ladero, and then Christian Roldan, and of course Rui Diaz up front. So as I mentioned earlier, the signing of João Paulo as more of that CDM role, I think that's going to push Roldan up to the wing there. Just a quick note on the breakout youngsters there. I did give you that guy's name to pronounce. I tried to give you a little bit of a pronunciation that was at least given to me by one of the Reddit subscribers there. So Hopiao is how I'm going with that one. And he unfortunately has not quite signed a first team contract yet, but it sounds like this season he probably will get one. That's why all these fans are so high on him. But yeah, that's I think the defense is really good. They with Nuhu coming up, I think he's a good player. He's still young. You got to remember this guy was playing for Seattle a couple seasons ago, and then he kind of did fall out of favor a little bit and would come off the bench because he's got so much speed and kind of play that super sub role type of thing from the wing back position. So I think they've done well, at least with the signing of Gomez Andrade, and Arriaga is decent. I like that back line, but I'm a little concerned as far as the depth goes, because if they lost a lot of depth with those guys that they lost this season with Roman Torres not coming back, Kim Keehee, they don't have many guys right behind them that I think could step in and really be successful. So I think that's probably their weakest spot, but it's a good solid back line if everybody stays healthy. Morris, Ladero, Roldan, it's a great attacking midfield with Rui Diaz up front. The Sounders are going to be good. They're good every single season. I just can't see this team, missing out on the playoffs. They don't do that. They make the playoffs. They're going to be a good team. They have lots of talent, and they're going to be in that talk for another MLS Cup. So I want to talk a little bit about the predictions and ceiling and floor. That's kind of my prediction, right? I think the ceiling is this team could win the Western Conference. They're that good. As far as the floor goes, maybe 7th in the West if everything falls apart, because they make the playoffs. They don't miss. So that would be the worst case scenario for them. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's kind of you're right. It would be really hard to say Seattle doesn't make the playoffs, and I think even putting their floor at the 7th seed is probably even a little too low of a floor for them. Maybe if they have a CCL hangover and just like everyone gets injured, maybe, I don't know. Schmetzer wins the lottery and then just like hits the Powerball and just says, "Forget it, I don't need to coach anymore." Like maybe that's if Seattle falls apart. But yeah, I don't see them finishing, any worse than 5th or 6th in the Western Conference. Maybe they fall a little bit just because the defense is a little questionable at this point, and we all know how potent the offenses of the LA teams can be, and some of the Texas teams have a solid striking core. So maybe they give up in a goal scoring race. and end up finishing, fourth or fifth, something like that. Worst case scenario. Best case scenario, we saw it. They win the West. They win the MLS Cup. I think that's it. I don't know if they're going to win the West. I wouldn't put money on them to win the West, but that would be the ceiling for the Seattle team. Bring home a couple trophies. They got the talent, they got the pedigree, they got the coach, they got the experience. They're bringing up some like young attacking players, so it's all there for them to put together a multiple trophy season if everything breaks the right way. And here's the funny thing: we haven't even talked about Jordan Morris yet. This guy is a staple for the United States national team. He's had some breakout games lately in CONCACAF competition, albeit against lesser CONCACAF competition. Let's not think he's going to come out and be the next big thing for the United States as far as goal scoring goes. But he's got the talent. He can strike on an international level, and being able to do that and get those developmental minutes with the national team is only going to make his game in the MLS that much better. He's only going to be able to play and gel that much better with guys like Ladero and Rui Diaz and some of their defenders who have bigger, better experience. He's probably going to fit in really well with João Paulo, and that's going to be a scary thing for opposing defenders to be like, okay, who do I mark first? Who do we focus on first? Rui Diaz? Or do we focus on Ladero first? Or don't forget Jordan Morris making that deep run up the wing? Or, hey, here comes João Paulo trailing and can blast one in from 25 yards. Like, it's going to create a lot of havoc for defense, having Morris stretch things wide on the wing and still be a threat. So that's kind of my 2 cents on Jordan Morris, and kind of my last thoughts there on Seattle.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about their first game. It's on February 20th against Olympia in the CONCACAF Champions League. This team can make a run in the Champions League. They've already come out and said it. Schmetzer's come out and said it. We're going to play the kids in the first few games of the regular season. Their 100% focus is on CCL, and as it should be. I mean, you look at this, they got the good draw, so to say, which, again, doesn't really matter in a tournament like this. You're playing good teams, especially once you get into the quarterfinal, semifinal round. You're playing really good teams. But it is a good draw. They match up first against Olympia, which they should be able to take out no problem. Then they get the winner of Saprissa and Montreal. So that's a toss-up, right? We've talked about that one. So either way, Montreal or Saprissa, they could beat that team as well. Then that would set up a matchup against most likely New York City or Tigres in the semifinals. So this team could just kind of end up in the semifinals before they even get to a really tough game. And there you go. You've got anything can happen in these two-leg systems. They could beat Tigres. It could be New York City who pulled a massive upset over Tigres, and then Seattle can take out New York City because they're playing at Red Bull Arena. It's anything can happen. So they've got a good chance to make some noise in the CCL, and that I think they've got to go for it. They're doing the right thing by going for it like they say they're going to, and I'm really excited to watch these games to see what they can do, because CONCACAF Champions League is just an awesome way to get started into the season. I mean, there's nothing better than watching these CCL games, especially when you're playing Mexican opponents and whatnot. So it should be fun. I think they could do well. But why don't you give us your thoughts on CCL and then take us home?
Well, Mike, you already put out your prediction episode breaking down the bracket of CCL, so I encourage all of our listeners to go back and check that out. But you're right. The fact that they don't have to come across an MLS or Liga MX opponent until the semifinals is a really good draw. I don't want to undersell Saprissa because they do have a pretty good history in this tournament. They're one of the top Costa Rican clubs of all time. So I don't want to undersell Saprissa, but yeah, if they rout Olympia in the first round, then they could just really take it easy and have a good fresh legs against the home and Saprissa. And then again, if they're able to rout Saprissa up in Seattle, well, then they're going to be fresh and rested for that semifinal game. So they do have a good path. We know Schmetzer has been talking to all the other coaches who have had success in CCL, like all the MLS coaches. Anyone who says, well, we're just taking it lightly, we just want to, make it. No, they want to win this. MLS coaches and MLS franchises want to be the first team to win CCL. They are all talking to each other. They are all getting as much advice as they can. So this year with Atlanta and Seattle and LAFC in this tournament, like, it's going to be an excellent chance for an MLS club to win CCL. And it wouldn't surprise me one bit if it was Seattle that ended up doing that. We'll get to see them in action on February 20th at Olympia, and then we'll make sure to have more updates about Seattle and their odds after that first game. So that is our Seattle preview. Thanks for tuning into that, fans. Looking forward to your feedback on all of our social media accounts, especially. So we want to go ahead and then kind of finish out this episode. We got a few minutes left. Mike, you got some TFC news that we can cover really quickly, and then just wanted to run down the latest of the collective bargaining agreement that was struck last week. So give us your latest TFC stuff, Mike.
Yeah, so TFC has signed their third designated player, Pablo Piatti from Espanyol from La Liga. He
Any
is
relation?
a winger. No, but they said it's really going to hurt the jersey sales. I mean, nobody in Toronto wants to buy a Piatti jersey just from Ignacio Piatti in Montreal. So they put the P in front of it, so it's P period Piatti on his jersey. But that's not the importance, though. What's important about this signing is that when it came out kind of as rumored to be done, it was, what the heck are they doing? This guy is injury prone. He's missed most of the last 2 seasons from injury. And, he hasn't really done much over there. He has a great pedigree coming up through the Argentina youth system and lots of good experience in La Liga, where he did have a couple good seasons back in like 2014, 15, 16, 17 range that he did well and scored some goals and assists, but hasn't done anything since. And you're thinking, is this really the guy? We're talking about, we were talking Mario Balotelli. We were talking about Olivier Giroud. We were talking about all these other guys, these big names. And then you're signing Pablo Piatti that I've never heard of before, that had a couple good seasons a couple seasons ago. Very interesting. And I wanted to hammer the hell out of this signing until I saw a couple things come out that were very interesting to me. The only saving grace to this is that it's a 1-year contract, so with an option for a second. So if it doesn't pan out, it's 1 season. You're not locked in. It's not a 4-year deal. So that at least is good. The other thing as well is the fact that there's a lot of talk with the new CBA, and I don't know exactly what's going on with it, but as far as there's some type of rule that could possibly be put in place with this new CBA that has the third DP has to either be under 23 or has to be at that TAM level salary of 1.6 million. So apparently they got Pablo Piatti at that 1.6 million. So that bodes well for that rule. If that comes into play this year and or next year, he can be bought down with TAM. If they do pick up that option, he can be bought down with TAM and their DP spot opens up again next year. So then they would have him on top of it. So overall, I'm not as pissed off as I was when I first read it. But still, it's a little bit disenfranchising to think that this was the big signing that Bradley took such a big pay cut for. And Bradley, who's out for another 3 months because management didn't really manage his ankle very well. So it's questionable. I think a lot of people if things don't start well for TFC, there's going to be a lot of people screaming for Ali Curtis's head.
And that's fair, but you got to remember, is TFC really poised to make another run at a trophy this season with Josie out, with Bradley out, with Piatti as your third DP? Realistically, maybe the window is closing. There's some questions in the goal. Who's going to be your starting goalkeeper for the season? Who's your go-to guy? There's questions there. So maybe they're just kind of saving their resources, hoping they just have a respectable showing this season, and then either going all in over the summer or next winter transfer windows. But speaking, you were talking about the CBA and how that may affect this deal. There's a few highlights of the new CBA. It is a 5-year deal. It'll run through January 2025. Couple big points is that the first one is that increased investment in player spending. So there's going to be more money in the salary. There's going to be more money for GAM, more incentives. It just kind of step by step increases every year. It's not like you're going to get it all up front. So I think that's good from a financial responsibility perspective that they've kind of tiered this out over the next 5 years. There's going to be greater salary budget flexibility. So they're going to have more TAM, more of it's guaranteed. And then obviously there is a lot of new media revenue coming in. There are tons of new TV deals. ESPN carried all of the U.S. Open Cup games last season. And while the U.S. Open Cup isn't affiliated directly with the MLS, you've got all these MLS clubs playing in it, and they're getting a portion of that money. You've got the CONCACAF money. You've got all these new games and tournaments they're playing with Liga MX, trying to come up with something like that. Preseason games are being televised. There's so much more media out there that not only is the money coming in, but now the players can get some of this through increased salaries. You can increase the spending on the players using your revenue, your media revenue. So though that money aspect of it is just huge. The other kind of non-monetary points that came up, increase in charter flights. This was a big sticking point. We have players who are traveling literally cross-continent in coach because that is the teams were under no obligation to provide chartered flights for them. Now clubs are going to be required to use chartered flights 8 legs of their travel during the 2020 season, and that's going to grow to 16 legs of travel through 2024. Also, all international travel must be chartered. So if you are going to a CONCACAF Champions League game, you're in a chartered flight. And if you're going to a playoff game, you're in a chartered flight. That's huge. That is going to actually probably draw some more international players to the United States, because you heard Zlatan say it last year, like, dude, they don't even get chartered flights. Why would I go play for the United States? Like, or why would I go play in the MLS for that? Something that star players did not like. Free agency has expanded. The DP spots have expanded, as you mentioned, Mike. That third spot can be almost a TAM player, depending on how they structure the contract. What's big as far as designated players, they're calling it the young DP rule. If a player is under 22 years old, a club can sign that player for a reduced salary cap hit. Again, young DP type of thing. This allows them to lock these players up, to let them develop more with the clubs, and hey, possibly sell them overseas if they're getting minutes on the first team already, or at least, keep the assets within the team. You don't want to see the team academies and USL franchises develop these players only to see them run off to another club or go international. So it gives the team some more control over their assets, over the players' future. And again, it allows the players to make a little bit more money because they can get on these young DP deals. Those are the big things with the new collective bargaining agreement. Expect to see a lot of smart GMs really, I don't want to say manipulate or find the loopholes in, but we all know that's what they do. So expect to see a lot of cool new contract signings and terms and things like that over the next couple of years. So with that, Mike, that's everything I wanted to spit out in tonight's episode. What more do you want to add about the CBA? Any notes from around the league? And then bring it home, brother.
Hey, I really have nothing on the CBA. I haven't had a chance to really dive into it. I saw some of the graphics that MLSPA had put out, kind of the stuff you noted on. Other than that, I've been extremely busy editing video and putting these team previews up on YouTube. So if you haven't checked out the team previews on YouTube, do it. Check it out. Make sure to subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, and get into that so have a chance at a $100 gift card if we get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by February 29th. Other than that, thank you, fans and listeners, for listening. We really appreciate it. And to our sponsors, here's some big things coming out of one of our sponsors, kind of changing things up here in the next few weeks. So be on the checkout for that, and we'll take it from there. Other than that, hope everybody has a great night, and we will talk to you guys soon with some more team previews later this week.